Look, had to get on my grind, ain't got no time to be making excuses. Success in my mind, I hit up Sean when I landed up in Houston. Him and Gentry told me, Ayo, G, when you chasing your dreams, gotta take that risk, so I stake my chips, put it all on me. It is what it is, put all the chips all on me, yeah. I don't talk too much, put the money up all on me, yeah. I'ma put 10 bands, 100 bands, millions all on me, yeah. I'ma put 10 bands, 100 bands, millions.
Thanks for coming on today. You have a really interesting story. Probably, not what some people would think is normal for sure. So introduce who you are, and then we'll kind of, rewind it back, and you can kind of tell us how you actually got to that point.
Cool. So yeah, dude, thank you for having me. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule, man, visiting San Diego. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
And I recently resigned from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation 2 years ago. Right, my name's Hector Bravo, and I kind of just been hitting that entrepreneurship world, man, ever since. Before that, I was in the military, deployed to Iraq in 2004. So yeah, it's probably not a normal story.
What made you want to go into the military? Like, tell us your story from when you were a kid, or maybe your life leading up to that first deployment in the military.
So I graduated high school in 2002. Couple years prior, junior year of high school, I'm from Brawley, California. It's a small town in Southern California. The recruiter from the Marine Corps showed up on career day, man, and then the light bulb went off. Seen him with a uniform like that. Had never, other than seeing commercials on the TV, never even considered the military. But that dude sold me with the college paid for, the uniform, travel. He didn't say travel to dangerous countries, but he said travel. And I knew that was probably going to be the only way out of my hometown, because it's kind of one of those places, if you don't get out, you're stuck there.
Ottawa, small town.
Yeah.
This is also, how old are you?
How old am I right now? 40.
Yeah. So I'm 43. So back then, no internet, right?
No internet.
No social media. So you
Zero.
you don't really know the life outside of your small town.
You had ICQ, which was like a messenger app, NetZero, AOL, but nothing.
You can't see what's outside of your town. So the only people you can learn from or you see is just the people that are close to you, or maybe your friends' parents, or you just have no idea.
No, you're right, dude. And I'm not going to claim that I grew up like in the hood or the ghetto, but I'll tell you what, man, there was a lot of drugs in Brawley. Like the house next to our right, they sold heroin out of their house. And then the guy to my left, who I consider a friend, my neighbor, he was like a meth addict. So I was around drugs. But at that point in time, I didn't partake in that.
That's pretty good. That's hard to do when you're young and you see everybody else doing it. And
I credit my parents. Super
helpful. I, made some bad decisions from the ages of, maybe 18 to 22, 23.
Right.
And it's really hard when you're a young guy trying to prove yourself in life. You still are not mature, and you'll make a bunch of bad decisions over and over again and not learn from your mistakes for whatever reason at that age period.
Well, the human brain doesn't stop developing till the age of 26. So you're still putting in content. You're still pumping your brain in with
that makes a lot of sense.
Lessons,
yeah,
good or bad.
Yeah, you definitely are not as a guy, for sure. I mean, you'll make bad decisions over and over again.
Or insanity, right? And then I had to learn what insanity was.
Yes. And so luckily you made it through that and you didn't go down that path.
I did when I got back from Iraq in 2005. I did go down that path.
So, but before that, you go to the military, you just want to think it's going to be a venture. It's going to be a way to get you out of that small town.
So that was the key element. Get me out of the small town. Also patriotism because of, my love for the country in general, man. And then 9/11 happened. Then we invaded Afghanistan, or started the war in Afghanistan. So, dude, 17-year-old kid. At the time, I will say I was pretty much a beta male. I would say 17 years old. I didn't want to play football because I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to play baseball. I didn't want to get hit in the face. So I was kind of feeling, honestly, dude, the first time I'm ever saying this on camera is like, I felt like I was letting my dad down, bro. Like not living up to the expectation of being a Mexican man. You know what I mean? And I only weighed 121 pounds, dude. So I was a skinny skater with long hair. I was looking for that thing to thrust me into manhood. And that's what happened, dude. And went to Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry.
When you first got there, what was the experience like when you first get to the military and you come from a small town?
I loved it because of the adventure. I've always been an adventurous, hyper dude, risk taker, adrenaline junkie. I wanted to be like Evel Knievel when I grew up, stuntman. So I enjoyed the push-ups portion because I was skinny. So like I put on muscle mass. It became physically fit. The discipline, God knows I needed discipline. The military bearing, you know, how to dress appropriate, nice, sharp, creases, spit shine boots, presentation, command presence. So I'm like gaining, you know, and I have these combat veterans leading the charge, teaching us.
Yeah, for a young man, it's definitely helpful to go through something like that and have something to look up to and have some purpose, and also help you from making bad decisions, keeping you from doing that.
Correct, because one of the biggest fears is you don't want to mess up, man. Because if you mess up, there's different ways that can handle it. Group punishment. So one messes up, everybody messes up,
And
you don't want to be that guy.
Everybody hates you after that.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy, man. So that'll keep you in line. I'm not necessarily saying that they put hands on us in 2002, but I mean, it wouldn't be out of question. You know what I mean? Like, especially when we got to Germany, man. I think Germany was stuck in the past because that's where I was stationed before I went to Iraq.
Really? So you're in Germany, you go to Iraq, and is that so we're at war at that time?
We had already invaded Iraq in 2003. Me and my best man were highly upset when they captured Saddam Hussein and showed him on the news, and we were still in Germany. We were yelling, we were drunk, we were throwing our uniform at the TV. I got a picture saying we missed our war.
It's all ready to go.
100%, bro. Because we didn't realize, you know, the effects of the actuality of war. It's just one of those things that you see in the movies, or that's what you perceive it to be. You know, you're going to chase the glory, you're going to get into some combat, but in reality, and we can talk about what it really entails. So in 2004 is when our unit, the 1st Infantry Division, got orders to go into Iraq. Now, that was the second year of the war, so that was the beginning of the insurgency, dude, the guerrilla warfare. Car bombs, roadside bombs, indirect mortar fire, and ambushes. So a bunch of hit-and-run tactics.
So y'all are deep in the middle of combat.
13 months.
How old are you?
19 years old.
God, that's young.
That's extremely young, dude. And it didn't get real. It didn't really set in until people started dying. And then it became real. Then I remember thinking, I'm not invincible. There's a really good chance I might get killed here.
What was y'all's job in the military at that time? Like, what was your infantry
mission?
Doing? Yeah.
Who knows what the mission, man?
Not the mission, but the day-to-day.
Oh, day-to-day?
You had, yeah.
The alleged mission. The alleged mission was to restore Iraq back to the people of Iraq.
Okay.
Allegedly. But they didn't want us there, man. Politics aside and propaganda aside, they didn't want us there. So day-to-day, I'll tell you like this. We worked 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There was no time off. If we were not on patrol, meaning if we were not, they would split up our platoon into two. The first squad and second squad would be outside of the wire, patrolling the area, and third and fourth squad will be back, and then we switch. Dude, raiding houses at 2 o'clock in the morning, kicking in doors, getting high-value targets, getting military-age males, like gaffling them up, putting blindfolds on their heads, bringing them back to the camp, setting up traffic control checkpoints, looking for guns, bombs, bad people, bad guys. Pretty much, bro, you just drive around until you get hit by a roadside bomb, then kill the enemy.
Were you seeing people on a daily basis or a weekly basis just getting killed every day or every week?
Not every day. We were getting attacked every day because when we weren't out on patrol, you're back in your camp, and our camp was FOB Palawada, Forward Operating Base Palawada, and that camp got mortared and rocketed every single day. So imagine just going about your business, and then it starts raining bombs. That's what the daily occurrence was. Now, they weren't always hitting somebody, but they were hitting things, right? people were not dying every day per se, but bi-weekly, weekly, and then it can be like boom, boom, like nothing for a while, and then like boom, boom, and then like, you know, us killing them, not even knowing if they were the bad guy, which is sketchy.
Wow. And you're 19 years old.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think. In
The only reason why it's
mid-combat, 19 years old.
The only reason why it's crazy to think is because if you look at a 19-year-old now, they look like kids, bro. They look like oblivious kids to the world. But we didn't feel that way. We didn't feel that way. We felt like men. Like we had a lot of burden of responsibility, dude. We were in charge of human lives. The good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is a lot of responsibility. And our leadership, man, our sergeants, our NCOs, our staff sergeants, they seem so much older, dude. They seem like my dad's age. In reality, they were 23 years old, 24 years old. But imagine that type of character of a man. Dude, I've never seen anything like it since then.
Maturity.
Dude. I mean, you will follow these guys into the gates of hell because they're such good leaders, dude.
Yeah, that's definitely, a hard thing to learn when you're young is to be a leader like that and to lead other people. It's one of the hardest things to learn in general, but especially when you're young because you have an ego, you have something to prove. It's hard to be that person that stands up and does the right thing and commands leadership like that.
I'll be honest with you, man. It was a blessing. My leaders were the best leaders ever, dude. And I've talked to other people. They're like, I didn't have leadership like that. Or maybe there was one or two guys. Literally all my leadership were dudes like that. And a lot of them got killed in action later on in the war. But, bro, that's where I learned from.
Yeah, that's inspirational. Definitely at a young age when you have people that you can look up to like that.
You know what sucks is I didn't realize it.
You're looking back on it.
Yeah, in hindsight, looking back, it's like, dude, that honor that I had. But looking there, I mean, that's just, to me, the norm. You come out into real world, now we're in 2025, we are so far from that norm. It's that these people cannot even get close to that type of leadership.
So what happens next after you're in combat every day? You're 19 years old. Where does that take you? And then, what happens with the war?
Well, unfortunately, not fortunately, however you want to look at it, man, when we got back from Iraq in 2005, like 3 or 4 months later, my contract was up. So I went home as a civilian in 2005. The problem with that is post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't talked about. It wasn't a thing. Mental health wasn't a thing. It was one of those things where you like shut up and put up. You don't talk about it. Before we left Iraq, we had a nurse or a psych tech ask us a series of questions prior to leaving the country. Have you ever seen an American soldier get killed? I answered no. We all answered no. Have you ever killed anybody? No. Have you ever seen a civilian killed or wounded? No.
Somebody tell y'all to say that? Or what was the thought of?
Well, good question. I think one of our sergeants said, "Hey, you're gonna have to answer these questions."
That's what I'm wondering is
you're gonna have to answer these questions. The quicker that you say no, the quicker we can get out of here. So it was like no. But to be 100% honest, bro, all those answers were yes.
So if you would have answered yes to some of those questions, they probably would have kept you, tried to run you through, some type of psychology or, make you see a therapist.
And we were smart enough. I wanted to be in law enforcement after that. I'm smart enough to know that that's going to be a hindrance in my record. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to sabotage my future, but in reality, my future did get sabotaged with my decisions because of post-traumatic stress disorder and alcoholism, going to jail, crashing cars, et cetera, et cetera.
So you get out, you go from like crazy combat, high level of stress every day, extreme excitement one way or the other, right? And then you go to civilian life.
It wasn't crazy combat, bro. Like I wasn't in like World War II, but it was definitely.
I mean, you got bombs going off around you, and
oh yeah. I've had bombs go off right next to me.
Yeah, that's
numerous times.
That's crazy combat.
But again, that was kind of like the norm, bro. And then it's weird to think what your norm can be at that time.
Yeah. But when you get back, then it's almost nothing. And so you're trying to figure out how to incorporate this stuff. You go back to your normal life. It's like, how do you even live a normal life after you've been through that?
You don't. I didn't. Okay.
A lot of people probably do the same. I mean, there's no way. It's hard to go from that extreme back
Well,
down
the
to-
answer to that is to seek immediate mental health treatment immediately, right? That is the answer. But I didn't know that then. I self-medicated. Alcohol, drugs, women, reckless behavior. I was chasing the high from war, and I wasn't even getting close to touching it. I was getting close to dying.
Yeah, it's also hard for a guy's ego, you know, hey, I need help. Is especially for a young guy. It's like, you know, nobody can tell you what to do. I can figure everything out myself.
And I was 20 years old at that time. And again, it takes
Still a baby.
till the age of 26.
Yeah.
So that brain is that brain is filled with dope, alcohol, killing, watching people get killed, women. It's just like, I was a mess, bro. But my logic was, my parents were on my case, dude. They were on my.
Were you living with your parents at that time?
Yeah, I moved back home, but they would eventually kick me out because of my behavior.
Probably the best thing that happened though, right?
I don't blame them. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing. I don't blame them. I found myself in jail shortly afterwards.
If they didn't though, you might have, you know, made those same decisions just longer and longer. They would have been enabled you to have a place to live, because when they kicked you out, how'd you have money? Was the military paying you?
Unemployment, bro. Unemployment from the military. It was like $800 every 2 weeks. But that's what I was going to say, was that my excuse and my reasoning was, I'm 20 years old. I'm partying. I'm supposed to be partying. I'm 20 years old. I just spent a year away from home. I'm doing it extra hard because I'm making up for that 1 year. That was what I kept telling myself.
You justified it.
And at the time, that made sense. I mean, we were 20. Everybody else is drinking, but I was hurting, dude.
Yeah, I look back on those years of my life, and you know, people always say, "Oh, this, you know, made you who you are," and I'm like, I don't know. I regret that time period, because I got zero value out of that. You don't.
No, you don't get zero value. You learn. That's like touching a hot stove.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't get value because I wasted those years of my life, is where I kind of look at it. I just feel like it was a waste. And, you know, when I tell people, or tell kids now that they're that age, it's you're not supposed to be partying. You don't have to do that. I think that's the justification, is a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm just trying to experience a bunch of stuff.
When you're from a small town, like we talked about, that's all they do. I mean, that's
all you can do.
That's all there is to do.
Yeah, all you can do is drink every night.
And you're right. You can get into the tablets now. You can read. You can listen to podcasts, educate yourself. But that's not what the majority do. The majority get effed up at the bar and at the club
every single day. Yeah, I was in that life for a long time, and it's a really bad place to be, because you justify a lot of things and make a lot of bad decisions. And then, you know, I think with the alcohol and you know, maybe some of the people you're hanging around, you know, you continue just to keep making those same mistakes over and over every week. Like, you landed in jail, and then the next day you probably didn't wake up and go, oh, I'm going to change my life forever.
Next morning I went to
Did the same thing.
Straight to the store and bought alcohol.
Yeah, same thing.
But then again, I'm an alcoholic by definition.
Were you at that time?
I still am. I'm an alcoholic, right? But I'm 14 years sober. But I have that, what we call the disease of alcoholism. Mm-hmm. Meaning, dude, I just cannot have one beer and sit it down. I'm the type of dude that it's the phenomenon of craving kicks in. And it's not until I'm blacked out, throwing up, and that became dangerous, dude.
I've known a lot of people like that, and some close friends too. That
it's real.
Go down that same path. It's like, you know, maybe some people don't understand. It's like, well, how come you can't just drink one drink?
How come you just can't drink one drink? People tell me, well, now you can probably just have one because you've been sober for 14 years. Absolutely not, dude. Absolutely not. Because I work a program where people have relapsed, and bro, they freaking either die or never come back.
Yeah, you know yourself. It's like, if I have one, it's gonna send me down that dark path.
And it is dark, dude. It is extremely dark, bro. I didn't want to be alive.
How long was that time period that you were, you know, jail, alcohol, living a bad life? Like, how many years did it last?
From 2005 to 2006. Then I joined the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation as a correctional officer.
How'd you get in, you know, drug test? You know, what made you wake up and say, hey, I want to do this, and I don't want to make these decisions anymore, and I need to clean up my life?
So that was the goal from the start. Since from junior year in high school, the goal was to join the military, get out at the age of 21, and then join corrections at 21 because that was the minimum age limit. But however, there was a 2-year hiring freeze. There was a 2-year hiring freeze, meaning nobody was getting hired. So now I'm just partying, getting messed up. But once they did hire me is when I stopped the drugs, like instantly, like cold turkey or whatever. Just I know I'm a peace officer. I can't be doing this. But the problem was I was still consuming alcohol. So from 2005 to 2006 was the darkest years of my life. And from 2006 to 2010, I was drinking alcohol, holding down a career, holding down a relationship. But on the outside, it looked like I had everything together. On the inside, I was still suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I had not sought treatment yet until 2010.
So you're coming home every day from work or off your shift and you're just start drinking.
More like binging, waiting till my days off. Me and my girlfriend, she's my wife now. At the time, we had an apartment in La Mesa, and when the weekend came around, dude, I'd start drinking during the day because I'm off. She's working. My days off were during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. And bro, like I said, I would continue to drink, call friends over, drink, and then we'd go out. So now I'm disappearing for days without my girlfriend knowing where I'm at. You could just imagine how unsettling that is and damaging to a relationship.
Yeah, of course. Alcohol and or drugs definitely clouds your judgment on a lot of people that care about you. And so, for some reason you'll make bad decisions and you will disregard a lot of the signs from those people because all you care about. It's like, I just want to go party with my friends. I just want to keep drinking.
You become selfish. It's
of course,
alcohol.
selfish,
I can't make excuses, dude. I have to accept 100% accountability. I don't give my wife enough credit. She even told me, like, hey, you never even talk about how much I stood by you. Because we're currently not together right now. We separated 7 months ago. And we do have a 6-year-old daughter. That's our priority. But she's like, you don't give enough credit to that I stood by you during those dark years. And she did. She truly did. I would eventually go to rehab in 2010 at the VA hospital, and she stood by me. She'd come visit me in rehab, drop me off on the weekends, pick me up.
How did you make the decision to go, or what event, or what?
Crashed my truck, dude. I crashed my Toyota Tundra in 2010. I totaled it, man. I should have died, but I did not die. I came out unscathed. I totaled my truck. I'm going 80 miles per hour. The cops were looking for me. The highway patrol were looking for me. They were calling my job. They were going to my parents' house, and I was pretty much on the run, dude. As a correctional officer, bro, 26 years old, 2010. So at that point, my dad was done with me. My dad's like, hey, I'm going to drop you off at the VA. He was pissed, beyond pissed, dude. I'm going to drop you off at the VA. You're not my problem anymore. Do not call us. We're not your family. Later. But luckily, he didn't. So we were still living in El Centro. So he drove me all the way to San Diego to the VA hospital here in La Jolla. And thank God he didn't just drop me off and leave. Because had my dad dropped me off and left, I would have just got on the local bus or walked home. Somehow, I wouldn't have stayed. I know I wouldn't have stayed. But he walked me into the emergency room. I walked up to the lady behind the counter, and I said, ma'am, I need help. There's something wrong with me. Every time I drink, I get in trouble. I have these thoughts. I don't know what's going on with me. And you want to talk about like the ego or when did I surrender or when was that change? That was the most courageous thing I ever did, dude. Because that took everything from me to ask for help. She looked at me. She got like a smile on her face. And she's like, don't worry. Like, have a seat. We're going to talk to you right now. Like, she made me feel calm. And then that's when the journey began, dude. When I started learning about post-traumatic stress disorder, alcoholism. And that's when the journey began.
You were still employed at the time. What ended up happening?
So yeah, bro. So yeah, dude. Like I feel blessed. No, not feel blessed. I know I'm blessed, right? And I know there's a reason why I survived everything I survived and got all the chances was because I feel my purpose now is to help others that are struggling, through my story and experiences. So luckily, my dad was my coworker, man. He was a CO at the prison, and he talked to the warden with the union president, and they said, hey, he told the warden, my son has a drinking problem. Can you allow him to get help? Instead of firing him. And he said, yeah, I'll allow him to attend rehab. We'll put it under the guise that he's on vacation so everybody else doesn't know, but he can go get help. So now I feel like and that's another reason why I'm still sober, right? Other than learning the process. But yeah, dude, I owe it to that warden.
I was about to say that's a really awesome thing, not making you feel like shit, number one, and then not, you're not sitting in this place not knowing what's going on. What's everybody thinking at work? What's everybody like going to think about me if they know? And so it was probably, really awesome thing that he did for you. Just say, oh, he's on vacation, he's going to come back. And then in your mind, you can just relax and not overthink or whatever.
It's funny you should say that, dude, because like at that time, I cared about what people thought, right? It's different sides of mindsets, different elevated levels. So like, yeah, peer pressure was huge. Other people's perception of me was huge. So I was mortified, dude. And my dad played a major role in my recovery, dude, because like while I'm in rehab, I'm like, I need to get my truck fixed. I need to go get a new car. I need to call my boss. I need to fix things with my girlfriend or my fiance. And my dad's like, no, you need to sit here and shut up and learn. Right? And he kept telling me that. Don't worry about everything else. I'm going to handle everything else. It gives me chills because he told me, Hector, I just want you to get better. I just want you to get better. And I knew, okay. But it wasn't easy, dude. It wasn't easy, bro, because that mind was still... And again, I tell people you can't be happy if you don't have internal happiness. I didn't have internal happiness at that time. It's like I didn't even have love for myself at that time. I hated the person I was. I had survivor's guilt for my friends that were killed in Iraq, and I survived. I didn't feel glad. I felt highly upset that I survived and they died. I felt guilty. Every time a holiday would roll around, Christmas, Thanksgiving, I'm like, why me? Why am I so lucky? So I struggled with that, dude. I wanted to trade places with my friends that were killed so bad, dude. So bad at that time.
What was when you first went to rehab, what's the process? When you go in there, what were they teaching you? What was the program like? Because I know there's different rehabs that have different types of programs, but, what did they do that make you realize that, this is going to work? This is going to change my life?
So they introduced me into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Prior to that, I always thought AA was for like junkies or people that can't handle their liquor or old men, bums, you know what I mean? Like I didn't realize it was for me. It was it was designed for people like me, an alcoholic. So once my eyes opened up, and I credit to the staff there because you had psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, volunteers, students from college that were going, and they were all so welcoming, bro. They were all so knowledgeable. They were all so open to answering questions. And boy, did I have questions, scared. And they made me feel at ease. So I went to this thing called SAMI group, Substance Abuse and Mental Illness, which you're working on both. So first half of the day, I would go work on my alcoholism, and then they would pull me out, and then I'd go work on PTSD classes. I had to learn about anger, dude. Like I still to this day have anger issues. I had to learn about emotions, bro. I didn't even have emotions. I didn't want to have emotions, right? Because I felt that was a weakness. Like I had to learn, dude. I had to dissect my trauma. I had to learn. Oh, dude, it was work, bro. It was unpacking. It was unpacking everything I attempted to suppress.
With the alcohol.
Yeah, dude. And it was not, this is what I tell people. It wasn't easy, but it's possible. And ultimately, that's what you have to do to recover.
Is to realize you have a problem and then want to get better.
Yeah. It's want, because had the program of Alcoholics Anonymous been introduced to me any sooner than that point, it wouldn't have worked for me. Not because the program doesn't work, but because I wasn't ready.
Yeah, you weren't at the right place.
I didn't want it, right? You got to have to want it. And an older gentleman told me one time, Hector, AA is for people that want it, not for people that need it. And it put things in perspective.
How long were you in the program?
28 days.
After you completed it, did you go straight back to work?
Back to work. Sober. And then, dude, it was a journey of trying to figure out who Hector is. Who's Hector? Who is a sober Hector? What do I do? Like,
Purpose. Like, what do you,
well, who am I? What is the only Hector I knew was from the age of 15, drinking and partying and going crazy, being the life of the party, to now not. It took me 4 years to realize who I actually was, dude. And at that point, I made the conscious decision. Like, I'm a guy that likes to work out. I like to hike. I enjoy video games from time to time. Like, I like to read, right? Those simple things. Like, I don't have to be this magnificent thing, man. This is who I am, right? So I've self-development.
That's always a big part of, life-changing events and changing your life is self-development, for sure. Learning, growing, figuring out to become the man, not to make those same mistakes again.
Well, they say, if a man can conquer himself, he can conquer anything. And ultimately, that's what I did, dude. I tapped into myself. That and the combination of becoming selfless. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous teaches you to be selfless. I was a selfish, manipulating individual when I was drinking. What can you do for me? Right? Trying to lie to girls to get what I want. This was a new change that was so rewarding, so fulfilling. It was a spiritual change, dude. How can I help you? And expect nothing in return. And that's what drives me to this day, is helping people.
Very fulfilling, helping people. And and watching people change and knowing you're making a difference. This phase of my life, I definitely enjoy some of those same things, because I'd love to help people not make the same mistakes I did, especially at a young age. As you're just really lost between those ages of really even just from the age of 16, but there's a pivotal point, 18 and 19 and 20 and 21. Really, really tough time in a guy's life, trying to prove yourself, trying to figure out who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do with your life. So, definitely, a passion of mine and, a long-term goal to try to develop a really good program for helping people like that. So now you're sober, you're kind of starting to have a new outlook on life, and you're still working for the corrections at the time.
Yeah, then hey, bro, miraculously good things started to happen when I got sober. I got a promotion to sergeant.
Like, who would have thought?
Yeah, I stopped going to jail,
Yeah.
Number one. I stopped crashing cars. Although I did crash a car one time sober. It was a fender bender. Dude, and my initial thought was to run. And then I'm like, no, you don't have to run, bro. You're sober. Just exchange the information like a normal person. And that's exactly what I did, dude. So I learned not to add, more problems on top of problems, more drama on top of drama. But yeah, dude.
So now, sober, still working at the Department of Corrections, get promoted.
Twice.
Yeah. So twice. What happens after that? I mean, where are you at in life?
It was still one of those things. Okay, I'm sober, which is fantastic, which saved my life. I have the career. I have the wife. I did get married within my first year of sobriety. I did. I have the house. I bought this big, beautiful home here in San Diego. I'm a lieutenant. I'm doing it, right? But then, policy started to change in the prison system. Political agendas were being pushed. Safety and security. The safety of individuals was being jeopardized. And that's where I draw the line. I mean, if you want to make a dumb policy, go ahead and make a dumb policy. But they were literally leading people to the slaughter, man. Correctional officers and inmates. They were just the higher ups, because I was sitting behind those meetings, and they did not care for they did not value human life. So I want you to imagine, I'm working a strong program, right, of wanting to help people. I'm a lieutenant, so I have this responsibility. I have the experience of the leadership that my brothers in the military taught me, but I'm not able to enforce that type of leadership. I was at my level, but it's a machine, it's a system that kind of just overwhelmed me. And I was an extremely unhappy individual, extremely unhappy. Fear of losing my job because they were literally firing people for no reason to make a point, to scare people straight. I mean, whatever their idea of straight was. So I was really, the last 3 years were unbearable. The last 3 years. So 2020, probably 2019.
What were some of the like policies that you considered,
Putting boys in girls' prisons. Putting the male transgender inmates inside of female prisons. I just thought that was ridiculous.
like no logical common sense?
Correct. And that's one, right? Mixing inmates that are enemies on purpose. So knowing that if we put this guy with this guy, they're going to kill each other. And they were forcing us to do that.
But why do you think that was the case? So why would they want that to happen, or why?
I have no idea. It was an agenda. It was Governor Newsom. He's a governor, so tells the secretary to, and it just comes down. I do a pretty good job of explaining it on my YouTube channel, but it's a political system. The system is broken. Government, bro. And I'm not a freaking conspiracy theorist or a right wing nut job, but I have the experience of being in the trenches for 20 years of working for the man, military and law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, setting conspiracy theories aside,
right?
At some point, you just see that what's happening is not logical. Like it doesn't make there's no logical reason to make some of those decisions.
Some other things that were happening is an inmate would assault a CO, physically stab him, beat him up, and the first words out of the boss's mouth were, "Well, what did that officer do to cause that?" Like that was their mindset.
Really?
Yo, 100%. And then on top of that, well, let's look at the video footage and let's see what the officer did wrong throughout the entirety of his shift, not just the incident, right? So they'll catch the officer saying a bad word like on a little downtime on a break. And then they want me as a lieutenant to write him up. The dude just got beat up, just got stabbed by an inmate. And now you're telling me, since I'm a supervisor, to write this guy up for cussing at the beginning of his shift. I absolutely refuse to do that. I absolutely 100% to refuse to do that, which I got in trouble for insubordination a couple times or put under investigation because the reality of it, that was not the policy. We were the first prison to get body-worn cameras here in California, and that was under the guise or the assumption that was a federal court order that the correctional officers were beating up disabled inmates. That's why we got them federally court mandated. But the managers were spying on the cops, dude. They were spying on the COs, like voyeurism. It was creepy. The stuff they were doing was pretty much illegal, if you ask me. And they were demanding to leave the cameras on 24/7. Like you can only turn it off if you have to go to the bathroom. And just everything that was transpiring, I wanted no part of.
That's a downward spiral if you can't. So that because the inmates are going to eventually figure out that I can do whatever I want and not get in trouble for it. And it's almost like they could get a cop in trouble, or they could get a correction officer in trouble.
You know what's crazy is that you have zero knowledge of the prison system, and you just hit the nail on the head. That's absolutely what's happening times 1,000. It became a madhouse in there.
That's what I was about to say. Then it just becomes just insane. Like
I'm actually like impressed that you drew that conclusion. Dude, that's exactly what happened.
And then I mean, are you losing correction officers? Because I'd be scared to go to. I mean, why would you want to go to work every day?
You're losing correctional officers to getting assaulted, workman's comp, sick leave abuse. Well, I don't want to say sick leave abuse, but hey, me personally, I called in sick a lot towards that end, bro, because I was telling people I'm rolling the dice. I can call in sick today and take my daughter to the San Diego Zoo, or I can come to work, roll the dice, and probably get fired with something that's not even my fault.
Fired or beat up or stabbed. And then it's such a weird place to be because it's like you can't do your job because you're scared you're going to get in trouble if you actually do your job, right? And keep something from bad from happening. And then also it puts you in a bad spot because they know that they can attack you.
You know what got really scary, dude, is that I started in 2006. Plus, I had the experience of war So I know how to defend myself, right? Defend my persons. These newer correctional officers were 21 years old, straight from the academy, and now they are being taught in the lesson plan that inmates are your friends. Inmates are not going to hurt you. Be their friends, shake their hands, get to know them. And also, if you use force, if you try to defend yourself, we're going to fire you.
That's the part that's weird, right? It's like you can't do your job.
So I was watching a lot of officers get physically assaulted and not do a damn thing about it, man. Taking it. And it was driving me crazy. And I would hold meetings and I would yell like, hey, you can defend yourself. You don't have to wait till you get punched. And they just looked at me like a deer in the headlights. Come the next day, it's like freaking Groundhog Day. And I couldn't, I was struggling, bro. I was struggling like, dude, somebody's going to get killed. Ultimately, a correctional officer will end up getting killed in the near future because of all the policy changes, and I did not want to be around to witness it.
Where was the prison located? Like what city is
San
this in?
Diego.
Okay.
Donovan.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what you said.
So I worked at two separate prisons. The first one was at my hometown in El Centro, Centinela State Prison. That was a good prison. And then after 8 years of there, I went to 8 years over here, and that was, I wanted to think more of a mental health psych ward type of prison with transgenders.
Yeah, so even a worse place to not have any, rule or law and order, right? It's just,
Absolutely.
do you think other prisons in California were like that, or was that? Do you think it was isolated to that prison, or you think it was more
now in 2025 it's a whole department because it's controlled out of Sacramento. They're the headquarters for all the prisons. And I talked to everybody in California, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And I talked to everybody. Well, I talked to a lot of people at every prison. And yeah, the consensus is the same. It's gone to hell in a handbasket.
all prisons are private, right? Are all prisons privately owned?
So the one I'm talking about and my former department is state.
I don't know which ones. I just heard that, a lot of them are private.
So there's state prisons. There's private ones, which a private one would be more like a company will build a private prison and house like illegal immigrants from like Mexico or wherever. And there'll be a private prison for like a ICE detention center. And then they also have different ICE detention centers. Then you have county jails where when you get arrested right off the street, you'll go to a county jail. And then you have federal prisons. So if you commit a federal crime, you're going to a federal prison.
So that's going on. You can't, you're trying to have team meetings. You're trying to, tell people they can, defend themselves.
Right.
What happens with your upper management when you're doing that type of stuff?
Well, I want you to imagine Nazi Germany and somebody going against the grain, somebody going against Hitler, or somebody telling the rest of the Nazis like, hey, what we're doing is not right. What we're doing, that's kind of the response I was getting, like looking at, like trying to get me in trouble. It seems like if you do the right thing, they get you in trouble, right? They want you to be on board with their BS shenanigans, corruption.
And so what ended up happening?
Oh, frivolous investigations. But see, the thing is, I was so smart. I'm not giving myself credit because they're not exactly the brightest. I was definitely smarter than them. So I was always ahead of the curve. So anything I ever got myself into or an incident, I always thought 3 or 4 steps ahead. How can they get me in trouble for this? What are they going to be looking at to get me in trouble for it, right? Because they would spin narratives. They would spin things around, mix it up, and then I would work backwards. Okay, check this block, check this block, check this block, check this block. And so when I would present my final product, there's nothing they can get me on. However, that's mentally draining, bro. So a job that would normally take, 1 hour was now taking me a little bit longer and a lot more mental mind effort. Plus, I'm in charge of officers and sergeants as a supervisor. So now I got to make sure that they don't get in trouble, right? Make sure they're doing the right thing. And I wasn't covering up crime, but I was protecting them from a corrupt system.
How long did that go on for? When did you end up leaving?
COVID happened in 2020. My sister-in-law passed away, my wife's sister. And when I told the warden, hey, sir, I'm not going to be in to work tomorrow, because I was working directly for him at the time. I'm not going to be in work tomorrow because my sister-in-law passed away. You know what his response to me was? Bring me verification that she passed away. That was like what he said. He didn't say like, oh, go ahead and take as much time as you want. If you ever need anything, he didn't say, I'm sorry for your loss. He said, bring me verification. Like, dude, And while people might not think that's a big deal, it was an accumulation of everything.
Yeah, all the other stuff that had happened.
Yeah. So the hamster in my brain went off, man, like, I'm going to quit, which is so crazy, dude, and so unheard of. In 2022, nobody was quitting the department, bro. It paid too well. I was making $157,000 a year. I was a topped out lieutenant. I was a lieutenant, bro. It's a pretty cushy spot, man, sitting behind a desk. But the BS, man, the BS. I pitched the idea to my dad. He was against it because my dad's old school, right? Old school.
He still working there at the time?
He did a total of 22 years, and then he retired. So like when I promoted a sergeant, he retired.
Was he there whenever they, like, all that stuff was going
No,
on?
bro.
Okay.
No, bro. So the things I would tell them, like my parents. Like I called my mom one time, like, Mom, I'm going to get fired. They're firing people for no reason. She'd be like, no, Hector, they don't fire people for no reason. I'm like, oh, yeah. So that was like frustrating me even more. I'm like, they're definitely firing people for no reason. But you got to understand, bro, you get fired from a career. That's how you feed your family. That's how you pay your mortgage.
Yeah, that's all you knew.
That's your life. You're taking away their life, dude. And they don't care. The higher-ups love that stuff. So I pitched the idea to my wife. Now, this is where my lack of communication did affect our marriage and part of the reason why we're now separated. I didn't communicate. Well, I did tell her I was going to quit. Apparently, she wanted me to break it down to her to every minute second, but I don't have the time for that.
Did she know about all the stuff that was going on? Were you coming home and like telling her, or like just very randomly saying stuff every once?
You know what's crazy, man, is on my YouTube channel, she watches it, and I air out a lot of stuff that happened. She tells me, recently she told me, I had no idea you were going through all that. I'm like, what? Didn't you see me like frustrated? Didn't you see me angry?
Yeah,
She's like, yeah, but I had no idea you were going through that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I made it clear that I was unhappy at my job. She's like, yeah, but I didn't know that's what you were experiencing. I'm like, I guess I'm not good at being in a relationship, bro. Like communicating wise.
Communication.
Communication, dude. But then again, bro, I felt I don't want to feel like a female in the relationship. Like, oh, honey, I had a bad day at work because my boss was mean today. So it's that manliness inside of me that, again, suppresses it, which cost me my relationship.
Hold it all in.
Correct.
Yeah, I was always like that for a long time too. Like I deal with all my problems in my own mind, and I don't really ever communicate anything.
And sometimes I guess that could be good, but sometimes that could be bad.
Yeah, I think over time, especially when you're in a relationship, you have to communicate. You have to be able to communicate, and not freak out on each other. You have to be able to, somebody that say something that could make you feel a certain way, and you can't overreact. And that's the part of communication is like, okay, we can have a conversation without one person getting too crazy or overreacting, and then try to come up with a logical solution, right? Like try to understand, like, what's a solution that we can do to fix the problems that we're having, right?
So on December 1st, 2022 is the day that I submitted my letter of resignation to the warden. I went home. I was done, bro. I instantly felt the relief.
Was this during COVID? So 2022?
No, after.
Yeah, so you're coming out, everything's opening back up.
Everything's opening back up. 2022. And I submitted that letter, dude. And I went home and I called my wife from the kitchen table and I said, I quit my job. And then she got angry and blew up on me. What do you mean you quit your job? You told me you weren't going to quit till the end of the year. And it was just like, and I'm like, hey, I quit my job. I don't care how much you're yelling now. I'm definitely not going back. So I didn't feel like I had the support. Not that I need support, but I definitely didn't need anybody bringing me down at the most critical time, because now my brain has to function like, how am I going to feed my daughter? How am I going to feed my wife? And how am I going to pay the mortgage? I did have some backup plans, though.
Did you at least have any savings or have anything to last you for a little while?
I had no debt. I had no debt. So I've always been, thanks again to my parents, financially, savvy enough. It's that old school mentality, though. Savings as opposed to investing now. So, but yeah, Hector, don't ever get credit cards. So I did learn my lesson the hard way when I was younger, but I didn't have no credit cards. Vehicles were paid off. All I had to focus was on the mortgage.
So you said you had a backup plan. What was the plan?
Well, initially, dude, I had to get a job as a security guard to make ends meet. But I did online coaching initially, right? And then I just kind of hit a rut.
What gave you the idea, though, to even get online and start doing the coaching?
So what gave me the idea was working at the prison and realizing, like, man, you have these kids that are millionaires and they just play video games on Twitch. I'm doing something wrong here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got people on YouTube that travel all over the world and they don't have a job, but they're making money and they're traveling. What are they doing? Right? So it perked my interest. Like, I didn't ever think that it was possible for a guy like me. Like, I couldn't connect the dots. But once I saw, and then seeking mentorship, like I attended some mastermind events as well. It's like, hey, your network is your net worth. So I surrounded myself with people at a higher elevated level.
And which makes you actually realize there's a lot more that's out there that's possible, right? When you see somebody else do it and they break it down to you, you're like, I could do that same thing. That's easy.
And like you were saying before that we started talking, was that you had already did all the legwork, the grunt work before you put yourself on camera. Me too, man. I knew how to endure a bad time. So what is a bad time if I'm working for myself? You know what I mean? I'd rather work for myself than work for somebody else.
So what was the initial online coaching business?
Physical fitness, mindset training, nutrition. Initially, I wanted to be a firearms instructor, but then I realized California is not a good place to be a firearms instructor, bro. So I had to learn about marketing, branding, sales. So I pretty much branded myself. So like these last 2 years, I've been branding myself and just capitalizing off of social media.
When did you end up quitting the security position?
A month after, like 2 months after, they actually gave me a promotion, bro. Like, they gave me a promotion, but I started noticing the same toxic traits within that management compared to my old management, because I'm good at reading people. And I said, there's no way I'm not going to take this guy's crap for getting paid less when I was getting paid bank over here, and I didn't take his crap. I basically come to realize, man, I don't do good working for people. That's not my personality, especially if they have dumb ideas. It irks me to no end.
Yeah, that's a good thing about working for yourself. You're in control of your own destiny, number one, and you just figure stuff out, right?
There's two things that I like about being self-employed. Is one, you're busy, probably more busy than working a regular job, but you actually enjoy and love what you do, so it doesn't even feel like work. You get to have conversations like this, and then there was something else, man. I just drew a blank.
What's one thing when you were around all those mentors and kind of like-minded people? Do you remember anything that stuck out that was good advice that actually helped you, maybe elevate your business or make the leap into the business? Or was there something that you can remember that helped?
Good advice is like that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Results don't happen overnight. It's small wins, small accumulative wins that, make the final product. The haters, that was a lesson in itself, bro. And it seems like the more I elevate to the next level, dude, it's like they come out of the woodworks, man. And it's like I have to tell myself, don't feed into it. Do not feed into it, because I can go down that path too. I mean, it's a story of the two wolves, the good wolf and the bad wolf, bro, because I can go either direction.
You'll never meet I think a lot of people say, and I've heard a lot of people say, but you never meet a hater that is hating from above.
That's true.
Right.
But I have anger issues, so I want to fight these guys, and I want to make it a point to know, like, hey, I'll fight you. And dude, I actually got kicked out of a job not too long ago. That's a whole nother story. I think I have anger issues, bro.
You sound like my wife. Somebody will make a bad comment, and she's like going off the deep end, trying to research them and prove a point. I'm like, what?
I don't do that. Like, I've probably done that twice, man. But when I do it, I do it. You can't do it. My advice is you don't do it at all.
Yeah, that's not gonna. If you have your mind focused on business, and you're trying to get to a certain level, focusing on that negative stuff isn't going to help you at any point in time, and it's not going to even prove a point. I mean, you kind of got to feel sorry for those people that they're sitting around just at whatever place they are in their life to actually sit there and say a bunch of bad shit about somebody.
Well, a lot of them are my former co-workers from the department, man.
Well, that kind of makes sense too. Yeah,
it's like the crabs in the bucket mentality.
Yeah.
And they're probably envious that I was able to freaking leave that hellhole, and they're still stuck there slaving it out.
Yeah, could be part of it.
No disrespect, but that's how I feel.
So what are you doing now? I know you mentioned the documentary.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, you have YouTube presence and, you know, it's Instagram, YouTube. Yeah. What other platforms are you on? And
I'm on Spotify, Apple Music. I'm on Twitch, YouTube. I wrote a book.
How are you using Twitch?
Xbox, bro. So
is it
basically,
really-
one thing I learned.
No, but
one thing
it's just gaming and
gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I learned is how to monetize my passion, monetize what I love doing. I just recently bought a drone last week because now I want to start taking like aerial photography for like real estate or construction. I have no idea how to do it, but I know how to get to doing it. You know what I mean? Which I'm probably going to get with a mentor or a coach that's already done it to give me that knowledge.
Yeah, to fast track your way.
Correct.
Give me, tell me about the book.
The book is called Operation Yard Recall. It's on Amazon. And I wrote that book prior to leaving the job so that I could leave the correctional officers, the new ones, with tips, tricks, and how to maneuver and function inside of a correctional system with like the experiences that were taught to me and some of my experiences. So it talks about policy, procedure, you know, putting handcuffs on people, being around dangerous inmates, knowing how to write reports, watching out for corrupt managers. So it has a lot of how to survive prison. And even if you don't work in a prison, it's still very informative.
It's about, say, leadership and working with people. Yeah. And then you mentioned something about the documentary.
So like a year into this journey, it's amazing the people that we meet in this journey. I met a producer and I said, hey, I have a story if you're willing to produce a documentary. Like, what is it?
Where'd you meet him?
I saw that he made a documentary called Ranger. It's also on Amazon. And he's like, yeah. And then we connected, bro. We connected. Like, he came out to San Diego, slept in his car for like a month. I said, dude, you can sleep in my house. And we filmed. We filmed for a whole year straight, dude. And it launched. It's available on Amazon.
When did it come out?
It was supposed to come out on the 1st, but it'll be up shortly. There were technical delays on theirs. But yeah, the documentary is called Grunt. And it's based on my deployment in Iraq, 2004, and then the trauma that I endured when I came back in 2005.
Was there anybody else in the story, or is it solely
my
focused
platoon?
on you?
My
Okay.
platoon, 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company, 118 Infantry. Yeah, so
I'll
all my
definitely check
brothers,
it out.
bro.
Yeah, I'll definitely
all my
check it out.
brothers, man, I shot it to them. They're like, oh, dude, thank you for making this. Like, wow, bro. Like, one of my friends from Puerto Rico, Maldonado, he's like, hey, dude, do you mind if I show my soldiers? Because he's still in the National Guard. You mind if I show my soldiers? Because they always ask me questions about my first deployment. I'm like, yeah, bro, handle it. Like, and it has a lot of his footage in there, too. Like, you can see him. We're all kids.
Is it you solely working on the coaching business and the mentorship stuff?
Yeah, dude. So also another thing that picked up for me is like Vice TV. I'll film for Vice TV. Tomorrow, World's Most Evilest Prisoners. Like, they have this thing. It's like on Netflix or like Hulu. And I've already done a few episodes. They want me to do some more episodes. So I'm kind of like getting my face out there in the mainstream media now. So it's like, and all of this is capitalizing. Like, and I enjoy it, bro. I like to think of myself like as Troy Aikman, like commentating on the NFL, right? But I would work for the prison system. I have that experience.
Yeah, and your story can help a lot of people now that, with social media for sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And ultimately, I guess what you can call me is a whistleblower, man. But again, it's part of my higher purpose to help people. It's like I had to leave that job, dude, in order for do what I'm doing now.
Is that what most of the these episodes are about, and all this new, like, the documentary? Does it documentary
No.
touch on that, or was it
Nah,
mainly?
bro. People are really intrigued on prison. People are intrigued on inmates, criminals, crime life, and prison. They're very intrigued. True crime.
Always.
They're so intrigued, bro.
I used to watch.
It's crazy.
I used to watch all those shows. I've watched every cocaine distribution show. I've watched all
it's
Cocaine
good
Cowboys,
for-
all of them.
I guess it's good for me, right? Because I have experience in it, but the people are really intrigued by true crime.
Yeah, because it's real, right? Like, it's definitely it's a real story.
I think too, when it comes to prison, is that like the only two people that will ever know what happens are the ones that work there and the ones that live there. So other than that, you're not gonna know what happens inside.
Yeah. Well, super inspiring story, man. Maybe somebody that's going through a bad situation in their life, or, maybe even people still have the job that you had. What do you think? What would you tell those people that maybe they could do to get out of that bad situation?
It's internal. right? You cannot do any other decision until you have a strong internal foundation. That requires working out daily, eating healthy, educating your brain, learning about emotions, emotional intelligence, EI. You have to be strong enough to make amends when you make a mistake, apologize, put your ego away, suppress your ego. Like, these are all key factors that you have to do. Be able to lead others, not step on somebody to get to the top, help them up. These are all key factors that before you even want to consider quitting your job, I wouldn't even recommend it at this point. When I first came out, I was kind of trying to tell people, like, hey, here's the way out. But looking now, they're nowhere near that.
They're not ready.
No. They got to improve themselves. Or they're going to fail. They're going to fail. They're going to leave, and they're going to fail miserably. They're going to try to blame me. I told them, work on yourself first.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story, man. Super inspirational, and I'm sure you're going to help a ton of people with that.
Thank you, dude.
Look forward to seeing the documentary.
Cool. I appreciate this podcast, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for coming on.
Thank you.